So it's a pleasure for myself to be here to support you with our solutions. According to the conversation with Mr. Joseph, we are going to focus a little more on the practical stuff. We are going to see the software, the main functions, and we are going to talk a little bit about some devices. We we're talking about two devices, one for access control, could be C5 Pro, could be M5 Pro, and another for time attendance solutions. That could be W2 or VF30, T60, I don't know. I have here one device that could do both options. It's a A300. It's the same platform of the VF30, and it's a very easy device to manage. Just to show the functions of the software, okay? Because we are going to talk about the devices itself. But in the software, it's the same configuration for them all. And so, if you have any questions, please put the question on the chat box. Then after we finish an issue or we talk about a certain topic, we can stop a little bit to see the questions. Or if you prefer, we can use a little time in the end of this training to talk about all the questions. In my opinion, it's better if you have a question, you just put it in the chat, because sometimes if we wait too long, we can just forget what we were talking before. So it's up to you guys. So first thing I want to show you is how to search documents, how to search information in our website. It's very simple to make it. First thing we need to do is to access Anviz website, anviz.com. And here we have a lot of information. We have a lot of catalogs, manuals, kit guides, software, SDK. It's the library of our files, you know. Everything that is public, you can find in here. So in the website, let's check, everybody can see. Okay, download center. So just going down in the page, there is download center here, and after we access, here we have the full library of devices. There are a lot of files in here, so you can be more specific. You can select what the specific thing you want, or just the model you prefer, and just type here the words that what you are really looking for. So in our case, let me put here, I want to download the folder of the M5PRO, for example. That is one of the examples I'm going to show here. So we have here the quick guide and the catalog. Let's download them both. I can show you after the download. It's very simple. It's a download link. If you want to send to a customer, for example, a customer of you asked for a document and you don't have it, you don't even need to download it. You just put like a copy the address link with the right button of the mouse, and then you send this link to your customer, and after you just press enter, it starts to download automatically. So it's very simple to send information for the customer without the necessity to download it from your own computer. Well, let's see these two files here on these two devices, two of the examples. Okay, let's see first the catalog. Here's the introduction. M5 is a device for outside areas, for access control. It's possible to use it as a time attendance, but we don't suggest very much because it's more difficult to how can I say? It's more easy to confuse the time attendance status, the in and out, to punch in and to punch out, you know. So it's better to use as an access control. IP65 waterproof, and before this version we had a version called just M5. There is M5 and M5PRO. The difference is just one, the relay inside the device. So M5PRO contains the relay to access directly to the lock. So it's much easier to install it. But everything has their pros and the against, let's say like this. It's a good thing and can be a bad thing depending on your installation. I will talk about it later. But this is the main difference. M5 doesn't have relay. M5PRO, yes, you can connect directly with the lock. It's a device with a metal case, so it's proper to install directly in outside areas. It can support rain, can support wind, the sunlight, so you don't even need to make a special protection for it because it has all the physical necessities to support a harder environment. Okay, let me just do a little zoom here. Well, here it's talking about dimensions, that is easy to install, just some more sales introduction to introduce itself, like just I say. And the difference of the applications. This is the application with the controller, so you can use the Wigan output together with a ST01 or 011 or ST011, depending how you spell it. And like this, you have a unbreakable system, let's say like this. I will talk about it in the other slide, in the other document. It will be easier, okay? And M5PRO can also use the relay directly to the door. Here are the specifications of the product. The user capacity, 3000. This is very important. The user capacity of our devices are based in the fingerprint template. For example, in this device, you can enroll 2 fingerprints per user if you want. However, if you use 2 fingerprints for all of your users, the full memory, the total capacity of users is going to be 1,500 because you are using 2 templates per user, and the total is going to be 3,000 templates. This is for all of our devices, so you must pay attention on this information to make a project, to talk about the customer. You should be sure of how many users he is going to have, and if the customer is going to use 1 or 2 fingerprints per user. So this is a very important information for all of our devices. Communication, TCP/IP. The M5PRO has an option of Bluetooth. You should ask the salesperson about it if you want to communicate with Bluetooth. I think that for access control is not so important because you have a lot of other communications. But if it's a specialized project, you can ask the sales, Anviz sales that support you about this function if you want to test by a sample and just make it. For our training, this is not the most important. It's not so basic, so we are going to skip this for a future training maybe. Someone is with the audio. I'm hearing my voice as echo.
Sorry, just audio out and camera also, please. Thank you.
Can we continue? I still see someone in the camera, so it's possible to close it because it might be some delay on the training. Thank you very much. Let's continue. Well, I guess for this folder, these are the main information. Of course, there are a lot of more information in here. You can study later. You can make your questions if you have any point, any issue, anything you want to discuss. Please feel free to talk later about it. Okay. So let's see now the quick guide. So just to inform again, all of our devices contains at least these documents. The folder is the sales, the commercial introduction, and the quick guide is how to use it properly. The functions, how to configure, how to enroll users, software. It's the step-by-step introduction talking about commercial side and technical side, okay? So this is just basic. What contains in the box of the device, how to enroll a fingerprint properly, the installation diagrams. Here, in these devices that doesn't contain screen, T5PRO, for example, M5, M5PRO, this is a very important thing, okay? That the device has a button on the outside area, in the back of the device for M5, and for the T5 Pro, it's inside the clutch, if inside the shell, let's say like this. If you open the plastic of the device, the shell of the device, you might see in the main board a small button. The button is called as function button. Let me see if there are more details on another page, because this is important. For example, if you lose the enroll card on here, this is important, because as the device doesn't have a screen, it's a little bit more difficult to enroll users, to delete users. You don't just need to access the keyboard with menu, config, user, enroll. It's a little bit more mechanical, let's say like this. So to enroll a user, you need to put the enroll card in the screen of the device, in the reading area, sorry, and then you just press your fingerprint here. You just press your fingerprint twice to make it. So what is the complete process? Swipe enroll card, place finger again, and swipe enroll card to finish the process. Then the user is going to be enrolled. If you want to add a card, it's the same process, but instead placing the finger, you just swipe the user card. And to delete, it's the same process. However, you just use the delete card. Where is the option here? Delete card here. Swipe delete card, place finger of the person you want to delete, and then swipe the delete card again. This, we can say that is not a positive point for this kind of the device, because imagine you have this device installed in a project and the user that was there is not working there anymore, for example, and you don't have the user anymore for him to place the finger to delete his fingerprint of the device. So in this case, the better solution would be to have this fingerprint and this user in the software. And then with the fingerprint and the identification of this user in that software, you can just send a command, send a information to delete this user directly by the Crosschex, for example. So this is something you also might know. If you are going to use this device as a standalone, from time to time you should make a user backup, so you can delete the users later if the user is not there anymore to put the finger to make the manual proceed. Okay. Let's see if there is any question. Manual in French, menu in French. I think that by factory we don't have this information in French. We just have in English and sometimes in Spanish and Portuguese, because I used to make the translation for my region. So if you want this in French, please talk with your supporter, the sales supporter from Anviz. Maybe we can do something about it. But by now we just use the let's say like the global language that is considered English. Okay, I think that's enough for this device. The function button. Let me find it again to explain, because I started with something, I skipped to another, and I forgot to finish it. Here, the function button. What is the main reason to use function button? When you buy these devices that there are not screen, they doesn't have screen, they come with two cards, the administration cards. Enroll card, to enroll users, as the name says, and the delete card. However, depending on the project, depending on the customer, they might lose this card. So if they lose this card, the function button is there to enroll new cards. So they can just separate two new cards. Doesn't need to have the the letter E in the card, or the letter D. Doesn't need to be. It can be just even a user card. However, it needs to be clean. I mean, if there is an user enrolled with that card, it won't be able to be an administration card. So to be sure, before use these cards as administration cards, you can swipe the card in the device. If the device flashes the red light, it means that there is no user in that card. So you can use it as admin card. So just separate two of these and press the function button for some seconds. The device will beep by 5 or 6 seconds, and then you can enroll them again. You can use this even if you want to control 2 or more devices with the same pair of administration cards. So this is very convenient and can be more organized for your system. Okay? Any questions? You can ask Anviz in Europe. Okay. Thank you, Joseph. I can still hear some audio in the training. I don't know who it is, but please, if possible, to check would be better. Well, I think that maybe I think it's enough for this device. Let's see what else. If you still have any questions, please, we can discuss. I would just like to show something about the TCP/IP communication here. Well, since this device there is no display, as I said before, the best option to make it work as TCP/IP is to communicate by USB before, because by USB you can set all the configurations by the software. So the most important thing to make it communication by USB is to, first of all, insert a USB cable. It's a mini USB cable. It's not the micro one that we use to charge our cell phones, especially talking about Android, but it's a little bit bigger, the connector. We call it mini or mini USB. And after insert the cable between device and computer, you just need to swipe the enroll card in the reading area of your device. Otherwise, the device won't be authorized to communicate with the software. This is a safety procedure. It's to avoid that anyone just connect the cable there and start communication with the device, open the door, enroll non-authorized users, things like that. So after the communication, just swipe the enroll card. And that's it. Once it's connected with the software, you just can use the device parameters configuration to change the IP. We are going to see this in the practical, okay? So I think that's it. These files you can check in the website. I can send it here to make it easier. You can download from our chat box. If you have any questions about this device, please let me know. Otherwise, we can continue. And I think that we can just open the software and talk about the practical area, the practical side, okay? Just let me drink a little bit of water. Okay. So, Crosschex standard. You can also download it in our website. Let me see, just pressing Crosschex here. Yes, you can find it. Our current version is 4.3.8. is the last version we have. If you want to download, if you don't have it, if you want to send to customers, the straight download link is here. Since I already have this file here, I will just open it. Crosschex standard. This is the icon, the symbol it has. By default, it's going to ask you the login and the password. By default, admin in big letters and password in blank, just like it is right now. And I can press OK. This is the main screen of the software. Whoa, there are so many buttons here, so many functions. Don't worry. Most of the times we don't use it all. Depending on the project, we use some. Depending on the customer, we use others. What I use to tell customers to find themselves inside the software, let's say like this. To use the function bars in the upside of it. So this becomes the software much more organized. For example, we have the help bar here that we can check for upgrades, we can send feedbacks to the factory, frequently asked questions about the software is going to show the version, the year, the website, anyway. In help, we can find the manual of software. There are many languages here. I guess there is French language here? No, sorry. But we had others. Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, Chinese, and English. Just pressing help, you can see the manual of software. And a lot of information that might be useful to check it later. Well, let's come back. First thing I wanted to tell you about is the database settings. This is important, especially if you want to use another kind of database. We suggest you to use, if not the default one, that is Access, it's an MDB database. You can choose by the SQL server. It must be SQL server, okay? SQL Express, SQLite, and other databases, they have conflict with the software. So please, if you want to use SQL, must be SQL Server 2012 upper. It's possible, if it's possible, because there are more compatibility with this kind of basis. And this just put the server IP, the username, the password, or if you want to create a database from zero, I can send you some material later. But by default, we use the Access one. Is the one that already comes with the software after you install it, and it stays inside the directory of installation of the software. Let me show here. I can just open the icon and open file location with the right button, and here are the files from the software. dbmove is a tool that dbmove is a tool that we use to migrate the old software, the old one we had, the AIM management, to this one. Just to show you, we are not going to make this now, but it's a tool that maybe you have a customer that has an old solution from Crosschex, before Crosschex, and now they are going to buy more devices, and they want to make it everything communicating in the only one system, and maybe the newer device of Anviz, that they can communicate with the old software. So we can use this migration tool to convert all the information for his old system to the currently one. So we just need to find the AIM path, the old software, and the new, and make the migration. I have a video just to make it. If you want, please ask me that I can send you the links of these tutorial videos. I used to have some of them in a YouTube channel. I can share with you later. DB is where the database is, as I said. So this is the database we are using now. Since the software is open, there is a little file here with 1 kilobyte just to read and write things as we make it in the software. If we change configuration, it just make the modification inside the database, okay? Questions? Okay, let me see, as reference, so I won't forget what we were talking about. Okay, let's proceed. The base parameters is the communication parameters of the device. For example, the communication port, the COM, the serial port, what is the delay, the network delay, the serial 485 delay, the IP port for most of the devices is 5010, the TCP/IP port, face path port. These are numbers. These are default numbers. If you change this number in the device, we suggest to change the number here. But most of times we would not change this because in sport the device works very well. Downloading record. This is a very interesting function. We can configure the software to make automatic downloads from the events of the devices. For example, let's say like here every day at 8 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 8 o'clock in the evening, I'm going to send functions to the devices that are connected to download all the information, the events, the register information, the historical of the access or the time attendance. I mean, so you can use that 5 times per day to make it automatically. So you wouldn't need to go manually in the device and make the download records. So if we configure this in Basic Info, it can make it automatically. And you can also export these as text files if you want. And here are the configurations to make it in the export file format. By the left side, it's the custom field setting. We can add some personal fields for the users. Let me show. In the user bar, if we add a new user, we can find here in custom fields some default fields. We can fill it personally from user to user, for his gender, his position, his phone, his employee date, address. And if you want to add another information here, that's where we are going to modify. For example, car plate. I don't know. We can add this field, and then when we add a user or we modify a user, this field is here, and we can fill with the information we want. Okay, this is for enroll user. We're going to see it later, but the information might be here. Okay. So from this function, I think that's it. Not so many things to talk. Minimize it to the system tray when closed software. Automatically backup the database. So you can choose to have these functions or not. Attendance parameter. This is important for the time attendance solutions. Okay. Shift covered 2 days. These are, for example, if you have a shift that starts today and finishes tomorrow. Example, a shift from 8 o'clock in the evening until 4 o'clock in the morning. If you put a count as the first day, in the report, this shift is going to be in the 21st May, because it's the day that started the shift. If you put count as the second day, in the report it's going to show the 22nd of May, because it's the day that finishes the shift. A workday count as. This is a basic parameter. I mean, doesn't need to be exactly the time of the shift the user is going to have, because sometimes in the same company you have a shift from 6 hours, you have a shift of 8 hours, so it's just a base. By default, for 80 minutes, which means 8 hours. You can put more or less, but these two fields are more important. The shortest work time, I mean, it's the minimal time that the software counts as a shift. Let's see, for example, if we put here 60 minutes and an employee enters at 8 o'clock but has to leave at 8:30, it's before the minimal, the shortest work time, so it will not be counted as a working day or working hour. It will be just an invalid option, and the software will not report it. So it's very important. And even more important, in my opinion, is the longest working time. This is the maximum time the system will understand as a shift, because maybe the user might forget to punch out, and after passing the limit, the user just doesn't punch it out, the software might count as an invalid day. So this is important to configure it correctly, and especially because of the overtime configuration. 7, 0, like 60 minutes. Here, as default, is 12 hours. So let's imagine that a user had to work for 13 hours, for example. Something important there, it will be counted as overtime, but if he works more than 12 hours, this is a limitation, and then the day of that user will not be counted because it has exceeded the limit. So we must pay attention with this information. Let's see, for example, the maximum overtime a user can make in my company is 15 hours. No more than this. So I should put 900 as the maximum in here. Okay? After making this configuration, we should apply all of it here. Since I'm just explaining, I will not make it, but for a customer, of course, we should make it. Not clock in, count as late. This is a kind of a penalty, you know. So if your user forgets to clock in, we can just enable this function and discount, I don't know, 2 hours from his shift because he forgot to punch in. It's not so usual here. Maybe it can be usual but in some customers. But if it is, we can use these functions in here. Not clock out counts as early exit. The same thing, but from the instead of forget to clock in, forget to clock out. Here is where we choose the non-working days, let's say like that. It's not just weekend. Maybe the translation is not the best, but for example, some companies work, they have duty days, normal days from Monday to Saturday. So if the Saturday is paid by the same parameters as the weekdays, we just have Sunday as a non-working day. So I might make some examples for you later to better understanding, but this is where we choose the non-labor days. In the overtime configuration is where we set, of course, the overtime settings. So if I don't want to configure overtime for my system, I don't even need to configure this side of the software. I just let it like this. But if I need to put some overtime rules, this is where I start. On duty, X minutes, let's say like this. Earlier clocking count as overtime. Not the time. I will explain it later. But for example, if I enable this function and I put 60 minutes earlier clocking count as overtime, let's imagine I configured a shift for my user that starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. If this is enabled and the user enters before 7 o'clock, it will be counted from 7 until 8 o'clock overtime. Deduct on the duty X minutes earlier. Well, I guess I'm going to have to use an example here just to make it easier. Let's do a timeline to explain it better. I think it will be more proper. Let's see if I can explain in this side. Something like this. Let's make a timeline. Well, 8 o'clock is the beginning. And if I put, let's put 30 minutes to make it easier. Okay. And this is 7:30. If the user arrives 7:30 or sooner, it will be counted as overtime. For example, if the user arrives at 7 o'clock, if I select deduct X minutes earlier, what the software makes from 7 to 8 is 1 hour overtime, okay? But If this is selected, it will be discounting the number I put here. So in the end, the report is going to say that he has just 30 minutes overtime because I deducted the X minutes later. If I don't select it, it just don't make this deduction, and the total is 60 minutes in this example. I guess it's clear. If it's not, please ask, we can do again. But this is the difference of selecting this field and not selecting it. And the same information is for the off-duty configuration, but now for the other side of the timeline. Instead of using the first side of the timeline, we just use, for example, to leave at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Let's say like this. But I don't need to repeat this example again, I guess. If he leaves at 6 o'clock in this example, and I enable this function, it will be 1 hour as overtime. If I deduct the 30 minutes, 1 hour deducting 30 minutes, the report is going to make 30 minutes only as overtime. That's it. Overtime level, this is a function we don't use very much. It's for scale overtime, let's say like this. For example, for the first 5 hours of overtime, there is a calculation on the multiplication of the hours. After the 5 hours, from the 5th hour until the 9th hour, for example, this multiplication is bigger. And for the 9th hour until the others, the multiplication is even bigger. We don't use this. We just make some jokes here with this. This is a slave calculation, but if you might need it, we can explain it later because it's a little bit more complex to make it. What we really use is the overtime calculation on the downside of this part. Overtime 1 is for the normal hours from the working days. Overtime 2 are for the non-labor days. So overtime 2 is for the days, overtime 2 are for the days we choose here in the weekend options. So if we choose Saturday and Sunday, and there is a user that works in these days, these are the calculators. For example, 2, if he works 3 hours, it will multiply by 2, and the report is going to show 6 working hours. In the overtime 1, for example, let's see, 1.1,5. If the user has 4 extra time hours, 4 overtime hours, in the report will show 6 hours because it's the multiplicator. And overtime number 3 are for the holidays. We can set holidays inside the software on the holiday list here. We can just say, for example, that December 25 is Christmas. December 25, 1 day, Christmas. And we apply. Here are the holiday lists we can set according to the area, the region, the company of the customers. We make it manually because each country has their own holiday. And after we make it, and if there is a user that works in this day, it will be counted as overtime and is going to multiply the functions by what we just set in this field. Alright? So I guess it's not very difficult. There are so many functions, so many letters, but once we explain it and after that we make some tests, you're going to see that it's not so difficult to manage a simple time attendance solution. Department settings is where we can organize the users inside the systems. For example, we can add a new department, the sales department, for example, where we're going to put the sales guys. I can add the R&D. I don't know if this chart is acceptable, but let's say, yeah, it is. And we can make sub-departments inside the departments. For example, inside the sales department, I can add the product A salesman. And like this, making sub-departments, sub-departments, and we can make an organization for the users. For an access control, for example, we can use Tower A, Tower B, first floor, second floor, and so on. Make it more organized. Let me mix it. Tower A, just to show when we add user later, to have as example. Tower A and first floor. It's enough for our examples, okay? That's it. Status settings, these are for time attendance config. So when some devices that has a screen, you can see the time attendance settings in the screen of the device, and you can make it, you can set this configuration by here. For example, I want to show in the device, in the screen of the device, a status that is, for example, in and out. They are more simple, but for break, for example, we can put coffee break, for example. And once we upload it to the device and we use the arrows of the keyboard, we are going to find the description status that we can personalize. We can customize, let's say like this. Sorry. And the symbol is very important because symbol 0 will always refer as in status, symbol 1 always an out status, 2 always a break, and 3 always an overtime. You have until 15 fields to make it, but depending on the device, they have a little bit more limits. Some more simple device, they have just 8 status that you can add in the screen of the device. Some others have 16, from 0 to 15. And after you make it, please be sure to upload this information from the device. The device must be here. We haven't added the device yet. We are going to make it later. Leave type, these are where we make some, here is like leave class, but we can just say this is a explanation of the absence. Let's say like this. For example, I can add a medical license here. If my employee has some medical permission to rest and he will not work in that day, these are the fields we make it. Very important here is just to put a number bigger than 0 in the minimum time here, because if we choose 0, after when we going to get the report, it's going to show a very common error. What error it is? I forgot the name now. Just 1 second. But this is very important. I give too many technical supports because of this. So I'm going to check where it is. Floating point division by 0. This is the name of the error. So if you had this error before, here is not going. This is just the tutorial to correct. But this is the message. Floating point division by 0, because the number 0 is in here. So please put a bigger number. I just use the 1. It's enough. And round up and round up control, we'll need to check it right now. It's not very used, but I can give you some examples later when we set some shifts to make tests, okay? And we can add symbol, medical license, and we can choose a color. Let's put red. Add. Another example, like vacation. It's something we use as a information from the software that user is not going to punch in or to punch out in that day, but there is an explanation for it, and won't be discounted the time that the user was not there. So vacation, we can put it also another color, but it's the same steps to make it. Alright? Work code, we don't use it also. We don't use it very much. This is, for example, to make 2 shifts for the same user, and you don't want to enroll this user 2 times. Let's say that the same user has a shift in the morning and has another shift in the evening. He rests by the afternoon. So you can use work code 1 for his shift in the morning and work code 2 for his shift in the evening. And you also need to inform this user to insert the work code in the device, so it can the device can understand that he's doing just the first shift or the second. Not very used. So I guess I will not make examples here now to save some time and explain the basic, okay? Well, the holiday list we already seen. Shift settings. This is very important for the time attendance. We are going to make it an example. So first of all, we have 3 options here: the timetable setting, the shift setting, and the user scheduling. We always start with the timetable setting. Let's use let's make an example as Labor Day. Let's say like this. And here we are going to use the timeline again. It's easier to understand. Let me make a timeline. Where is the straight line? Here. Easier. Okay. That's it. So the first option is the on duty time. What is on duty time? Is the first time, the time that starts the shift. 8 o'clock, for example. So let's put 8 o'clock here. 8. Off duty time is the time that finishes the shift. Could be, I don't know, 5 p.m. Look that the count as work time makes the math automatically. So it changes from the total time in between on duty and off duty times. In the examples, I'm going to explain it better. Important. Begin clocking time and end clocking time. These are the limit numbers for the entrance, for the punching of this user. So in this example, it's at 6 and 10. So let's put in another color to make difference. So at 6 o'clock is the begin clocking time, and the 10 o'clock is the end clocking time. What happens if a user punch in before 6? That is the begin clocking time. If the user punches here, it is an invalid register. The device will not understand this is a punching record. So it will not be counted as a working entrance. So that's why these fields are very important. And the same for the other side. If he gets some delay by some reason and he entered in the company at 10:30, it's after the last limit for clock in, and it will be an invalid record as the same way. So we need to put these fields here to make the limits between the first entrance and the last entrance. If the user enters at 6:30, 6:10, 7, 7:30 in this example, the device recognized, the system recognized as a valid record. It will be counted as an entrance. And after this, it's going to decide if it's a working time, overtime, sorry, if it's an overtime, if it's a delay, if it's a normal entrance, and so on. But this is the previous limit to make it. And the same thing from the other side. Oh, I forgot here to put the off-duty time, 17, 5 p.m. Let's put 17 to make it easier. The same to here. And we have the begin clock out time and the end clock out time. In these examples, there is 15 and 19. These are the fields, the limit fields for a punch out register. What I suggest in this case, to make a bigger number in the end clock out time, because most of times the overtimes are made after the duty. So we can put, for example, 11 in the evening, 11 in the night. Because if there is an overtime and the user punch out to leave his shift after this limit, it will also count it as an invalid record because it is not respecting the end, the limit of the clock out. So I always suggest to make a bigger number in here. Let's use the default because for the examples we are going to make, it's going to be better, okay? Oops. Like this. Later error and early error. These are the limits for my software to count the punch-in or the punch-out as a normal record. For example, in this case, let's put 15 minutes. Make some allowance, a bigger allowance. So late error, 15 minutes. On duty, 8 o'clock. If my user punches in 8:10, for example, at 8:10, it's inside the limit. So it will not count as a delay. The user will not have this time discounted. And the same for the early error, but here, before the limit, the off-duty limit, if he leaves at 4 o'clock in 45 minutes, it's inside the limit, still inside. So it will not be counted as a discount, a work discount in his report. However, if he delays 16 minutes more than the on-duty time or the off-duty time, then it's going to be a delay in his report. Question? Yeah, you can also leave it at 0. If the question is by this field, you could put 0 here. So if he, I don't know if the software calculates correctly as 0. I would suggest to put it 1 because we had that experience. For example, in the leave type, we should not put 0, but we can make a test later. No problem. Let's let 0, for example. We can test it right now. And count as a work day. This is also very important because some companies have more than one shift in the same day. They divide the shift, for example, one shift in the morning and a shift in the afternoon. In those cases, we need to put the count as working day. The total between them shall be 1. This case it's 1. Let me add just to explain you. So for example, if this was a morning shift from 8 to 12, let's say like this, and I would add another shift for the afternoon, this shift should be, for example, 0.5. So the morning shift would be 50% of the total shift, and the afternoon shift would be the other 50. They must be together as 1. If you put 1 in the first and 1 in the second shift, the total day will be 2. So it can be counted, for example, as overtime, or the software might mix the information and not give you a correctly report. So you should pay attention very much in this detail. Okay. In our examples, we should put just one, like it is right now. And the count as work time, it just put the total between the first on-duty time and the off-duty time. It makes the calculation here. Here we can make some examples. For example, if my users will not punch in or punch out to lunch, they don't need to go until the clock, put the finger to leave for lunch, and they don't even need to come back and put the finger for lunch. I don't need to control it, for example. Then I can discount 60 minutes from the total working time. In this case, would be 48 because the software would already discount the rest, the time for the lunch, for example. But in my case, I want to control the lunch of my users because they might delay in the lunch by some reason, and I need to discount these minutes from his report. So in that case, we let it as default and inform the users to punch in to leave for lunch and to punch out to leave for lunch and to punch in again to come back from the lunch. In the examples we can see the difference. Must clock in, must clock out. I always suggest it to make, because if you don't clock in and you don't clock out, you will not have an accurate report. And depending on the rule you configure, the software might not inform you the correct time the user was there to work. Free time, if we would like to control the free time, for example, if we had 2 shifts and we had a break, a very big break in between these two shifts, we could use and make a shift to control the free time. And the overtime. This is very important because most of people confuses this function. Let me just say the question before. So you must add 2 half days on a shift. If you want to make it, for example, 1 shift in the morning and 1 shift in the afternoon, to control them separately, yeah, you should add 2 half days. So that's where we configure in the count as working day. This is where we put 50% for one, 50% for the other, or 40 for one, 60 for the other. The conclusion is the sum, the total between them, shall be 1. Okay? So just coming back here, this is the field I was talking about, the overtime, the OT time. If, for example, the people think like this, I want to enable overtime for this shift. People who work more than limit will have overtime in their report. It's not like this. This is not correct. This is overtime field, for example, for us to make a whole shift as overtime. Let me say an example that is very common here. The vehicles company, the factories that manufactures cars, motorcycles, they have 24 hours schedule working. Of course, not by the same person, but some people work on Sundays. So for the people that work on Sunday, I can create a shift just for Sunday, for example. This shift is just for Sunday, and since it's Sunday, it will be counted the whole shift as an overtime shift. That's where I enable this field. It's for a shift, a total shift as overtime. When I see the report, all the shift is going to be in the column of overtime. So in this case, in our example, we don't enable it because it's a labor day. It's a normal day from Monday to Friday, for example. I guess it was clear, okay? If it's not, please let me know. I can explain again. Well, that's it. We have a shift enrolled. A shift, no, a timetable, sorry. I'm going to see a shift right now. Sometimes I just say shift, but in this field, in this area, I was referring myself to timetable. Shift is right now. You're going to see the difference between them. On the shift is where I record like a chronogram for the user or for a group of users. I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to assign it later. Let me say example. Let's put weekly. I don't know. You can put by day, by week, or month. Let's use week. That is for better understanding. So I can configure this timetable we just enrolled right now and add this timetable from Monday to Friday. And then I have the Labor Day. We just configured it here in this week. We could put until 4 timetables per day. For example, that's where we would put the morning timetable here and the afternoon timetable here. Or the morning, afternoon, evening. You have until 4 per day to make it. So it's very convenient. It's more flexible, you know. And for example, one thing that is interesting here, we could put, for example, user to work one Saturday in 1 week and in the other resting Saturday. For this, we could just add 2 cycles and add Saturday in the first week, and in the second, we just let it in blank. It's like a rotative shift. Each user from this shift work one Saturday, yes, and rest in the other. One working Saturday, rest in the other. So it's like a cycle, you know. It's automatically, after you assign this information, it becomes automatically in the calendar of that user. So it's a very practical example to see how is the rotative function. Many clients ask for this function, that's how we make it. In our example, we don't need it, so let's use the delete timetable to remove it from our example and come back by a simple cycle. Oops, only one cycle. That's it. And remove Saturday from Monday to Friday. That's enough. And we add this shift. Okay, now we have the timetable, 1 per day. We could use more. Maybe it's even interesting for you to make it later, to make some exercise, to make some practice. I need to, how we say here, I need to teach you how to fish and not to give you the fish, like we say here. So it's up to you guys to make these exercises later after our examples, our very simple examples, okay? And once we have the shift, we can schedule it for our users. However, I don't have a user here yet, so there is nobody for me to assign. So before it, I might enroll a user for my software. So I can explain this right now. User field, in the upper bar, we can search for user and add a new user. ID on device, ID on device and user number. I always suggest to make these numbers the same, because if not, the software might confuse, or we can confuse the software. More human error than computer error, let's say like this. ID on device is the ID in the proper device. It's the number the device informs you that is your identification there. Some devices has only 6 digits, some devices have 8 digits, some devices have 15 digits. You must respect the memory of it. And the user number is the number for the software. For example, we could put here the first 6 numbers of the national ID of the user, because the device has 6 numbers limit. But in user number, I could complete the national ID number. So it would be easier for me to search this user on the left side here. I should just put his national ID there, the complete one, and I will find the user in the software there. This is just a reference. How could we use this one number different from the other? But as always as possible, just put them together with the same number. My name, as an example, card number. If I had a device connected by USB in my device, in my computer, and the device has a card reader, I could just press card in here and swipe the user card in my Anviz device. The code of that card would be shown here. Let me see if I can make this example now. If I have an easy card to make it, to show in practice for you. Let's see. Let me plug my A300 here. It's loading. Okay. Press card. Oh, I already had made it. Let's put again. Card, swipe card, and the number of my card code is in here. It's easier to enroll cards, for example, in a system. Let me just put it back, save some space. Let's continue. Password, if I would like to add a password for this user, we could just have an external keyboard, for example, in the computer where I am enrolling, and I put this USB external keyboard for the customer, and he could press this password in there, 12345, for example. And I also have the option to see the password if I want. If I don't want it for my users, for the users of my software, later I can teach you how to disable this function. So for example, for the receptionist of the project, the customer, the receptionist will not be able to see the password of the user. So this can be important. The department is where I put the organization of my software. If I have 100 users, 1,000 users, 2,000 users, the table would be very full, would be more difficult to search the user. So I could use the department to organize it. Let's put this user, for example, in the first floor. Group number. This is also important for us to the access control time configuration. I will explain it later, but by default we use 1. Number 1, always, if the user put the fingerprint in the device and the device is an access control, if I put user as group number 1, it will always open the door. If I put number 0, it will never open the door. The relay doesn't receive the authorization to open it. And number 2, and so on, is for customized timetable access control. We are going to see this after we finish the time attendance examples. Identification is where I choose if I want to just the fingerprint or fingerprint plus RFID card to make some combined access, or even the 3 options together to open the door. The set is whatever, let's say like this, or the card or the fingerprint or the password. Just one information is enough to open the door or to store one valid record. This is important. The attendance statistics related. We can calculate attendance or just make a user as access control, to calculate overtime, to rest on holidays. These are important to fill it correctly. I suggest you to make it as default because we are going to make some default examples. And we save it. I don't want to add a new user, so that's it. Let me see the question and I come back there. Where is the checkbox? Oops. Can we use any device to enroll the cards? Yeah, you can use other devices. I don't know if all the devices has these functions, but M5PRO has, M5 has, A300, I guess W2. Most of them has this option, but you need to have the device connected by USB. If you have the device by network, this function doesn't work correctly. So shall be connected by USB cable. Let's see. Let's come back here. The custom fields, we already talked about it. And we have the fingerprint registration. I could use the device, the proper device, to enroll fingerprints directly by the software. If I had a U-Bio device, a USB reader, let me see if I find a picture here to make it easier. Yeah, that's it. If I had this device, there is just a USB reader. His function is just to enroll fingerprints directly on the software. I would use the USB option. However, I'm going to use my A300 that I have here as example. That could be a M5PRO, that could be a W2, whatever. I choose network, and after I choose the device here. But I haven't added the device yet, but he would appear in here. Let's do it on the practical part, okay? Because theoretical is not so interesting as the practical. So let's stay like this for a while and add the device in the device option of the software. So I will add a new device. I will choose fingerprint. This is a fingerprint device, or card, or FacePass 7. This is a difference just for the M5PRO units that they use another protocol. It's not our case now. And as default, device number and device ID are 1. If your device is not number 1 and you don't know which device it is, you can put just 0 in here. That it will ignore the ID of the device itself, but will connect. And later you can see which device it is after connected and just replace it. Let's put test in here, and USB communication. That's how I have this device connected, and I will add my device. You want to use permission for all? Yeah, for all the admins and all the users. I can explain later too. So if it stays in the blue color, it is connected. If I want to be sure, I can synchronize time. Synchronize time, I will copy the date and the time from my computer to the screen of my device. If it's successfully, it's connected. I need to double check it. Right button, device information. It's going to show the firmware version, the serial number, the total users, the total records. So now I know 100% sure that the device is communicating correctly. If I double click and the device has a relay, I can open the door remotely. It's very interesting too. For the receptionist, for example, there is a visitor in the front door. She knows who is the visitor. She can give permission to open the door by double clicking in the device, or with the right button and open the door via software. Okay, let's see this after. Let's come back to the enrollment. So my user disappeared from here. Why? Because I haven't separated the correctly department. If I come to the first floor where the user is, here it is once more. Double click to modify. Let's come back to fingerprint registration. Now my device will appear here, so I can use it to enroll the fingerprint remotely. So I will put enroll. My device will open the screen for the temporary fingerprint. I'm pressing my finger twice, and I have my fingerprint enrolled in the software, okay, not in the device. If I put my finger again in the device will just fail. This is just stored in the database. Okay, let me save. If I want to upload the template to the device now, I could say yes. But in this case, no. I will explain you the manual way because you might need it later. Maybe if you forgot or you close this without having intention to make it, we need to make it manually too. So you can see now that the fingerprint number 1 is filled with the green color. It's because I already have the fingerprint in my database for this user. Continuing showing the modify user info, face registration. So if I had a face pass, I could make the same thing, but with the face pass to enroll remotely. And for QR code reader, it's a new function. It's not ready yet, I guess. For the M3 devices, I will study more this function before applying this on the train. So since it's not the focus now, we can leave it for later, okay? So basically, that's it. We could also put a picture for each user if we want, from the webcam or for a file we already had in the computer, for example. That's what I'm going to make examples here. View. And here we find a picture of this user. Let me use pictures here. I have an example of a man here. So we can zoom in or zoom out the picture and just select the part we want for the database. And we cut down and save. Now we have the picture. Important, this picture just stays at the database in the computer. We cannot send these pictures to the memory of the devices. I think just for the FacePass and for the OA1000, they have those functions to show the picture of the person in the screen of the device. But for the other device that doesn't have this function, most of them, maybe 90%, 95% of them, just show the picture in the database. Okay, so that's it. So finally, we have a user, enrolled user. We can come back to the time attendance assignment. Shift settings, user scheduling, first floor. Now we have a user. We can put the root. No, he's inside the sales. And in the first floor. Now we have a user to assign the shift we made. Just remembering, we made the timetable, the shift settings, and now we are going to apply this shift for the user. Double click in the user, shift name, and from when until when I want to add this kind of shift for this user. We can use the normal scheduling, that is when we have limits, the beginning limit and the ending limit, or we could use the intelligent scheduling, or one or the other. Okay, the intelligent scheduling, you don't need to set the beginning time, the beginning date and the ending date. He will just see if you work that day. He will count as a day and will make the report. If you don't work, he will make as an absent day. There is no limit. I always suggest to make limits because depending on the holiday, depending on the weekend, maybe the software can understand that is not a Labor Day and set as overtime, or depending on the holiday, he can understand it's a Labor Day and to put an absent for you. So I always suggest to use the normal scheduling. Once it's added here, we can save the information. And now, in the shift column, we see that Leonardo has a shift. We can also check the shift in a calendar that is on the down part. Until December, we can see the days and if he has a shift or not. May 31st, June 30th, it's a Sunday, there's not. So this is just the calendar of the working days for this user, alright? So I guess that's it. Now we can already start with the test. From 8 to 7. Let's use the manual record. This is also important for you because you might need it maybe later. For maybe if a user forgets to punch in or to punch out, you can add it manually. Where is this? Data. Append record. Here. This is where I put manually records for my software. So let's imagine Leonardo worked on Wednesday from 8. So in 8 o'clock, had a break for lunch. Look that in the first test I am respecting the fields, okay? I'm choosing correctly. Imagining I am using the arrows of the device to choose the correctly time attendance status, okay? So I leave midday for lunch. I come back midday, 1 o'clock. Come back lunch. Look that for breaks, no matter if I am starting my break or if I am regressing, if I'm coming back from my break, I use the same type of time attendance status because the software will always assimilate the first and the second and then calculate that the first is in and the second is the first is out, sorry, to leave, and the second is to come back to complete the break, okay? And out at 5 p.m. A perfect day. Never happens, right? But just for this first example, then after we are going to start making harder and more, let's say, like closer to the real. I use the 22nd, I guess. First floor. Here we can put for all my users at the same time if I want, or for this all from the same department or one by one. It's for my option to make it. If I want to see just time attendance or just access control records, it's very flexible. We can put the begin date, the end date. You can choose whatever you want here because the flexibility is very big. Here is just to inform you that the records are in my database. Supposing that I had downloaded it from the memory of my device. To make it quicker, we are making manual stuff, but just simulating a real one. So, in 8, break 12, break to come back 1 p.m. and leave 5 p.m. And now in the attendance is where we get the report. This is where the let's say the software makes the magic. Make the calculation to overtime, to absence, to delays, and so on. Let's make the statistical analysis. Look, a perfect day, in, normal record, break, normal record, break, normal record, and so on, for the Labor Day timetable. Scheduling record analysis, that's where we can see it in numbers. In yellow color, these are the default, the shift default, the timetable we schedule, and in blue or green, I don't know, is the real time that this user punches the clock. Work long, 50-40 minutes. Working time, 9 hours. Actual time, 8 hours, because I had 1 hour as break time, as lunch time, okay? So the numbers are correct. I can, for example, use the default reports of my software, attendance status total report, for example, 1 dirty day, 60 minutes out for lunch, working time 8 hours. Very simple. Or I can use other reports if I want. Monthly attendance hours, there are 9 hours. In this report, it just doesn't discount the lunch. It's how can I say, it's a setting, a configuration from this report. It's not saying that it's wrong, but this report calculates together from the first time in to the last time out. But we had other reports that we could use if we want. Okay. Or in the last case, if none of these reports fits me well, I don't want to use them, I can just export this report just like it is right now in an Excel file. But before it, if I want, I can just use the columns to make this shorter and more efficient, to remove some columns I don't need. For example, in this case, I don't use, let's see, work code. Just an example. I can take work code out, and the work code will not appear anymore here, and I can export. Depending on the customer, there will be a lot of more columns we could remove before the report. Test report. Let's put like this. And then I have an Excel file with the report. And I can make all the maths I want here. I want to make a different calculation from the overtime. I want to put all the ins together, all the legs together. I don't know. It's an Excel. It's another universe. You can make some math and had a customized report if you want. Just to say as reference for you guys, okay? Okay, let's start to make things a little bit more difficult now for the next 2 days. So in this case, there is no overtime for this user, okay? So let's imagine the user did actually overtime. He enters at 8 o'clock, okay, normal. I need to put the other day now. 23rd, 8 o'clock, break, midday, come back, 1 o'clock, and left at 7 p.m., 2 hours more as overtime. Let's see the record, if everything is correct here. Yeah, leaving at 7 p.m. And in here, in the 23rd, correct, leave at 7. However, in my report, if I check the overtime, there's nothing in here, look. No overtime and working time, 8 hours. Because we hadn't enabled the overtime function. Let's do it now. This is a very interesting thing also because you don't need to configure everything before starting the punches in and punches out. You can make it simultaneously to make it to set the correct configuration as you see the records. You can use this as feedback to make the correct configuration. So you can make this at any time. So in this case, I will put off duty 30 minutes later, and I will not deduct. I will not deduct the 30 minutes from the overtime. And the calculation of overtime, first I would let as 1, and later we can change to see the difference. So I have enabled the off-duty overtime. If I make the math again, to calculate again, now we must have overtime here in this column of overtime. From 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. we have 2 hours overtime. The same in this report. Now the overtime is showed here. I can also change the how can I say, the options of numbers here. For example, I want to show the overtime not in numbers, in full numbers, in decimal numbers. I want to show it in minutes. So I will find the overtime here in attendance parameter. Yes. And I find the overtime and change it for minutes. A minimum 1 minute. And apply. Apply both. So just to show you that for this report, now the overtime is showed in minutes. So I need to make the calculation again, so it will not be correct. That's it. Now it's calculating as minutes and not hours anymore. So 120 minutes, 2 hours. Okay? So I can make it for all these options from the reports, to change it for hours, to change for minutes, to change for days. It's up for myself to choose. Well, overtime correctly. Now let's configure the calculator, the calculation as 50%. So 50% of the overtime. If he has 120 minutes worked, but the calculation is 50%, the report will give me 3 hours or 180 minutes as overtime in the end. Let's see. That's it. This is the calculator. This reason why we need to modify there. Before the report, on the scheduling record analysis, it will show you just the number in minutes here really did. In other words, just 2 hours. But when we get the report, the multiplication appears in the report, like we said before. Well, that's it. Let's make another example with some more normal numbers, not just full numbers, and explain. Let's use now the 24th, and let's see that the user gets in 8:15, for example, as a delay, but the device was showing out in the screen of the device. It's wrong, but can happen. To leave for lunch, he put a break that he put in to leave for lunch at midday 34, for example. And to come back from lunch, it was break, all mixed. And he has a delay. I don't know, by some reason, he had to pay some bills, I don't know. But he is delayed. He came back 2 o'clock in 5 minutes and 23 seconds, I don't know. And to leave, it was in, so it's all wrong. He left 5:21 p.m. Let's see now how the software will react with this configuration. 24, and make the calculation. Look that the software don't understand correctly, but he suggests, according to the shift we made, it just suggests that that operation is in and not out. This operation is a break and not an in. The break is break, okay, correctly. And the leave should be out and not in. So the software, according to the schedule you made, the shift, the timetable you made, if you made it very detailed, the software can understand and correct for you if you agree this correction. Of course, you will not make it automatically because you shall approve this before. And to approve it, you select if you think it's all correct, or if you think this is not correct, you just select the one that the software makes the suggestion correctly, and you make save exception. But before save the exception, let's see the report. If the software still understanding it. In 8:15, leave 17:21. 15 minutes late. Break time with delay. So let's see that software understood correctly. Actual time is the time he really worked between delays and from getting in, from punching, and delay from the lunch. He worked 7 hours and 30 minutes. But in the working time, it doesn't appear correctly. So you might have some difference if you don't make it correctly before. What I mean, to save exception. So in this case, if you would use to export this record, this report, just we said with this example, it would be okay. But if we use the attendance status total report, would not show it correctly. So in this case, let's save exception as I said before. And now everything is correct. And I can search again. You can check that it's already normal. And in the report will be shown correctly. 7 hours and 23% of the 8th hour. 91 minutes as delay for lunch and 15 minutes as delay on the punching. So it's very simple, but we need to pay attention on those details to avoid these misunderstandings, okay? This manual modification, if you have some devices, for example, from the C family, C2PRO, C5, C2C, all these devices that starts with C, we have a function here, that time attendance auto switch settings. Since the A300 doesn't have this function, will not open, but this function means I can make this automatically in the device itself. For example, every punching between 6 in the morning until 10 in the morning, the device will record it as in, no matter what is in the screen of the device. If it's in, it's out, it's break, it's overtime, doesn't matter. If I set this configuration, the device will put this record as in, so it will make it correctly. It wouldn't be necessary to make what we just did here and save exception. The device would make it by itself automatically. So this is an interesting function from the devices from the C family. Other devices more simple, we should make it manually or inform the users to use the correctly status in the display of the device. Another interesting thing, maybe I don't want to use these functions, but I want to make things simple. I can put one device just to record ins and another device just to record outs. For example, when I modify a device or I add a new one, I have here time attendance status. If I select on duty for this device, no matter what is in the screen of the device, all my records will be set as in. Otherwise, in the other side of the wall, let's say like this, I can have another device, another equipment, and in that equipment I will set off duty. So in that device it will always count as out record. So to win, always win, and to leave, always out. It's another very simple system to make it too. Based on this, we have another kind of time attendance. Is the most simple time attendance one. That is the no shift time attendance scheduling. And I think we finished the time attendance training with this one because it's very simple and we have seen most of the configs for this time attendance. So to make it, I will create another user, no shift. Let's say like this. Doesn't need to put anything else. We already explained everything in here, but I will set this user as not scheduling. This user will not have a shift, will not have a timetable. So I put as not scheduling. I will not add any order. And I can see here, this is not scheduling user. Why? Because this user is more flexible. he doesn't have a shift. He works according to the working need, let's say like this. Imagine that this user will work today 10 hours, but tomorrow he will not work. He'll work again in the day after tomorrow, only 2 hours. So there is not a shift, there is not a timetable for this user because the way he works is too much flexible. We cannot fit him inside the configuration as a normal time attendance system. So in that case, we don't set nothing to this user, just the not scheduling config. And then we can start making some tests with this user. So where is him? Which department is this user? I don't know. Sales department. So this sales department user works on the 20th from 8 o'clock as in he left to smoke a cigarette at 10. He came back at 10:15. He had lunch, leave for lunch, midday. He came back from lunch, 1 o'clock. And you can see that I'm just using in and out, no other record type, just in and out. Because since it's more flexible, we don't even need to use the breaks or the overtime, just in and out. What I mean with this, I want to calculate just the time he stayed inside the company, the time he worked, let's say like this. 20th, May, let's see the records, May 20th, no shift, search. That's it. In, out, and so on. And in the attendance, where the software make the math, or the magic, we set 20th, and that's it. This is the most simple time attendance solution for flexible, not shift, but flexible working schedules, let's say like this. And in the scheduling record analysis, you can see there is nothing because there is no shift there. As I said, there is no timetable. But in the analysis of away leave is where we make the calculation between each in and each out. So here, between 8 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock in the morning, where he stopped for smoke a cigarette, for example, he worked 2 hours. And from 10:15 to midday, 1 hour 45 more. And you can see for each in and each out, this software calculates how much time the user, the employee was there working. We could export this and make the math of the total hours in the Excel if you want, or we can just use the attendance status to see there is a field here with the total hours he worked. So it's up to you to use this as a report field and make the math there, or use both together and the math is calculated here. And now also see if one of those default reports fits you, because maybe there is one report here that can be used as default and you can just save it as a PDF. It's up to the customer. Sometimes the customer just wants the Excel table to send to another third-party software to make the math and convert the worked hours to salary or to payroll. Depends on each area. The software is global, let's say like this. We don't use the money calculation, the salary calculation, because each country has their own rules. So we try to make a simple software, a global solution to everyone. So maybe depending on the rules, depending on the country, there might be one function and another that the software will not be able to support 100%. But in my opinion, as a global solution, it's more than complete software. There are a lot of things we can explore here. as we are seeing now. We are talking like 2 hours, and I didn't even say like, I don't know, 30% of the total functions of the software. But I think that's it. Just to finish the time attendance rules, there is the leave type, the business leave here. I don't know if this is the correct translation, but it's where we can put the medical licenses or the vacations for the users. Let's access to explain better. So let's make an example that Leonardo had a medical license, so he will not work on 27th. He got ill in the weekend, so from this day, as the whole timetable for him, he had a medical license and he got injured. I can also make some comments here to appear in my report if I want. Let's add. And I have the medical license for Leonardo here. This it happens with some frequency. It's not a mistake, but users send emails for me with this error. The selected range of leave time overlapped, for example. That's why, for example, let me see if I leave here, it disappears. No, I want to show this is a common error that happens. I will search here. No, there is nothing. But imagine that I put that business leave for Leonardo and I forgot. And I'm putting the same thing again and add. Then the user thinks that's the error of the software. And actually it is not, because this information, this record, is already here. Because if I put search, I can see. So I cannot add the same information to replace the information that is already in the software. So some customers might understand it as an error. So this is the reason. If he clicks in search, probably he will see that the register is already there. And you can modify it or delete if it's not correct and add again. So I had set the medical license. Let's see in the example how it appears. I could also make a report from this screen. For example, from this month. I want to see from all this month, from midnight to 11:59, all the leave class types, and search. And then it will show every user all the license you had applied for this month. And you can make a report of it to have as a document if you want. I don't know. But let's see here in the test. I think with Leonardo I started at 22nd, 21. Let's see, 21 until 27. Let's do a total shift, a total report since the first day, 22 until 27. 24 is the last punch out I had. And I can see 27, there's nothing in here. However, there is a medical license I put. And in the end, if I put the report, I can see that there is no absent. I think there is one absent because 22, I guess, 21st, I haven't used. So 22 until 27. Let's see again. And now there is no absent. And we can see in the status report, the absent is 0. Okay? And these are the minutes we had delay from lunch and to clocking late. But in the total, this is the attendance rate for this example. You can check later if it's correct or it's wrong. We can chat about it. But that's it. That is the main configurations for a time attendance solution with chronogram, with timetable, shift schedule, and also the second example with no shift time attendance. Guys, do you have any questions about time attendance? Any comments?
Hello guys, please if you have something to say to Leonard, this is the time, okay? Because just now it's the 5 p.m. of the afternoon here. The training is very interesting. I have some doubts that I have is already filled, but of course I need you mainly the tech guys. If you have something to ask Leonard, please ask it now. About the time attendance, about the add of devices.
Jose, I think we still have something to see about access control. You need to leave at 5 p.m. or do you have maybe 15 or 20 minutes more? I can make it shortly because access control actually is not so difficult to apply. And maybe we could finish everything together today. I don't know your opinion.
Okay, you can have more 50 minutes if you want to.
Okay, so since there is no questions, let's make it quick for the access control. It's very simple. And if you still have questions, type here. We can reply it later. Let's make the time work in favor of us. Access control is very simple. We have the device option here. We already synchronized the time. We already add a device. We have the device parameters. It's where we set the main functions of the device. For example, the volume, the date format, the Wigan output, the relay time, because maybe the lock that I will install, I need 10 seconds delay to get to steal the door open. That's where I configure this function. And it's here where I also set my device as default. When I initialize terminal device, this button can erase the memory of my device, the user memory and the record memory. So if I want to set it as default, I initialize the terminal, put display default settings, and then I put OK. The question, let's see. I have pressed, okay. So, well, what else do we have for access control? Download our records, backup users, resume users. Download our records, it will download all the records, the historical of the device that is in here to the database. Before it, let me enroll myself in the device. We had a user here, and now I want to give permission for this user to the memory of my device. So we can see here, there is no user in my device. So I select the user I want. I can select more than one if I want. Let's see if I have them. For example, I can select more than one. Let me put a password for this one, just to show in the memory of the device. So I have a password for this one. And now I want to give permission for these users to my device. So I select them and set privilege. Select my device, set OK. Then I will send these users to the software. If everything is right in the device information, I will see now I have 2 users, 1 fingerprint, 2 passwords, and 1 card number. If I put my fingerprint in the device, it will already authorize my access. Let me show you how can we make this together. In the device screen, there is a real-time option that I can show you as I use the device. It will be shown in the screen. So the device is in real time. I will put my fingerprint. The device recognizes me, and he says the user ID, my name, which device I got in, which identification, if it was a fingerprint, if it was a card. Let me put the card now to see the difference. look, the card, and I will use the password of the number 2 user, the number 2 user we had enrolled. 1 second, this password, sorry. 2. Okay, now user number 2 will appear here, no shift, and password identification. That's very simple. So I have the users in my device, and it still records the total number of access control records, as it says. So if I want to download these records, imagine that it was not in real time, it was standalone there. I just need to download all records from the device to my database. And now these records are going to appear in my system. If I use 21st here, I can see the records from them all. Just what we just did now. We can export the records, we can use this as a time attendance if you want later. It's up to you, but it's very simple as we are seeing here. So what we what we really need to know is that whenever we enroll a user, we need to set privilege before sending it to the device. And we could also use these functions if we want, if we do not want to make it automatically. Whenever there is an arrow from up to down, so the arrow is going down, it's to transfer information for the device to the computer. So download user, I will get users from the memory of my device to my computer. I can enroll a user very fast here. User enroll number 3 fingerprint. I am enrolling directly in my device, okay? And then this user will be shown in my screen when I download the user. Now user number 3 is going to appear in here. Number 3. There is no department for it. That's why it's in the other side. Let's put in the same department of the others just to organize. I need to put a name. Whatever I modify, I need to put a name. So this is test 2. So in sales, I already have the test 3. But pay attention. I don't have the fingerprint for this user. I just downloaded the user itself. If I want to download also the fingerprint for this user, I need to make it selected and then download template. Then he will copy the fingerprint template to the memory of my device to my database. Now it's in green. Why do we separate this option? Because sometimes the customer could confuse himself by replacing users. Let's imagine he already has a user number 3 in his computer and he's downloading a new user number 3. If he do it together, he could mix the information, he could confuse it, could replace the fingerprint from one user to another, and after, when, for example, the user passes his fingerprint in the device, could appear the name of another person. This is not so uncommon. That's why we split those functions. And the same thing could be happen if I want to send users from my computer to the device. Now I would use the arrows on the opposite side, arrows from the up side. So whatever there is arrows from down to up, going up, is from the computer to the memory of the device. Basically, access control is this. One more thing that is the most of the questions for me about access control is about the restriction, the time, for example. Let's see that I want to set a group of users that had access only from Monday to Friday from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. An example. That's where we set this configuration, access control. So we have 3 windows here. First one is the time period list, is where we set the restriction, the time restriction. Let's see Monday to Friday, 8 to 4 p.m. for example. So from Monday to Friday, let's copy, it's easier. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and 4 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, I apply this time list. So I can enroll until 32 times lists that I could use for several groups, different groups, for example. Access group now is where I set, it's like to configure timetable and shifts, you know. This is, for example, the timetable, and now this is the shift. Is where I use the timetable. So I will apply that time period information to users of group number 2. So the group number 2 is Monday, Friday, 8 a.m., 4 p.m., for example. And then I set the time list here. I could set until 4 lists per group. For example, here I could make a time period number 1, so users of group number 2 could access from 8 to 10. And in the number 2, I could put another list that they will have access from midday to 2 o'clock. And the other from 4 o'clock to 6. It's like cut periods, you know, cut periods. You have access in a range, then a not, then yes, then no. It's up for myself to make it. But in this simple example, we will just put only one. And we apply this information. Now, user in group is where I set this configuration for my users. So as we can see here, there is no users with this information because I need to set the users in the correct group before. So in user, let's use number 3 as example. Group number, here is where I set. So this user is going to be in the same group from the configuration we are doing. Group number 2. Then we save. Now if we come back there in access control, we can see the user is already here. Should be. I think it's because of the department. Let's see if I made it correctly. User group number 2. Okay. Let's change the department. Perhaps can be a bug. I don't know. If I see access control, yeah, the department shall be in the root department. Okay, this is something we might correct in the next version. I will report it for my engineers to check this. But the user is here, so I just need to update access setting to device. In other words, I will put this information for the memory of my device, because now this information is only in my database. So when I update to the memory of my device, then in the memory of the device, this user already has this rule. So if I put my fingerprint today inside the time, the device will release access, will release the door for me. But after 4 p.m., if I make the test, the device will recognize the user, will store the record, but won't send the authorization for the relay. So the device, this user now is inside the restriction of hours in the device. Well, I guess that's it. It was very fast. I will not take more of your time. If you have questions, if you have comments, I think now it's the time. I guess becoming late for you guys. You can test it, you can check it. If you have questions, you can ask Jose before, and if he doesn't have the answer, he can ask me, and let's make this more organized, because I have many distributors to take care. So if there is a first person before contacting me directly with questions, would be helping me a lot. Thank you all. Thank you very much for your time, for your attention. I hope this training can be very useful for you guys. You can check anytime because it's being recorded. And after recorded, please send me the video too. I will
Okay.
send it to my YouTube channel.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I can send to you the video. And thank you very much for the training. I don't